The massive transport ship's sovereign's pride shuddered as it entered the docking bay of Nexus Station, the largest diplomatic hub in the Andromeda Alliance. Ambassador Chun Wei pressed his face against the viewport, watching the controlled chaos of alien vessels arriving and departing. After 3 years serving humanity's interests in this corner of the galaxy, he thought he had seen everything. He was wrong. The communication panel crackled to life with the station commander's voice, a gravelly tone that belonged to a Corvathian. Ambassador Chun, you have an urgent priority message from Queen Zephyria of the Draconis Empire. She requests immediate audience. Chun frowned. The Draconis Empire rarely contacted other species directly, preferring to communicate through intermediaries. They were an ancient race of dragon-like beings who controlled vast territories in the outer spiral arms. Their technology was centuries ahead of most civilizations, and their military prowess was legendary. What could they possibly want with a human diplomat? Route it through to my quarters, Chen replied, straightening his formal diplomatic attire, and prepare conference room 7 for potential negotiations. 20 minutes later, Chun sat across from a holographic projection of Queen Zephyria herself. The Dragon Queen was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Her scales shimmered like molten gold, and her eyes held the wisdom of millennia. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Ambassador Chun, she began without preamble, I have a proposition that may seem unusual, even impossible, but circumstances have forced my hand. Chun leaned forward, his diplomatic instincts sharpening. Your Majesty, I'm honored by your direct contact. How may humanity serve the Draconis Empire? The Queen's massive head tilted slightly, studying him. It is not about serving, Ambassador. It is about accepting a responsibility that no other species in this galaxy has been willing to undertake. I need someone to care for my daughter. The words hung in the air between them. Chun blinked, certain he had misheard. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, could you repeat that? My youngest daughter, Pirith, requires a guardian. She is difficult. Every species we have approached has refused after learning the details of what caring for her would entail. The Corvathians fled when they saw her power demonstrations. The ethereal collective declared it impossible. Even the warrior clans of Thex Prime turned down our generous offers. Chen's mind raced. The Draconis were offering guardianship of a royal dragon to humanity? The political implications alone were staggering. Your Majesty, forgive my confusion, but why would you consider humans for such an important responsibility? We're relatively new to galactic politics, and our technology is centuries behind yours. Queen Zephyria's eyes seemed to burn brighter. Precisely because you are new, Ambassador. You lack the preconceptions that have caused others to refuse. And there are qualities in your species that intrigue me. Your adaptability, your stubborn refusal to accept defeat, your tendency to form bonds with beings others consider dangerous or impossible to manage. She paused, and Chun could see something that might have been desperation beneath her regal composure. Pirith is not merely difficult, Ambassador. She is the most powerful dragon born in our empire in over 5,000 years. Her abilities are so devastating that she cannot remain in Draconis space without risking catastrophic accidents. She needs someone who can provide structure, guidance, and, most importantly, someone who will not flee when her true nature manifests. Chun felt a chill run down his spine. What exactly are her abilities, Your Majesty? The Queen's hologram flickered slightly as she seemed to struggle with the explanation. Pirith can manipulate matter at the molecular level. She can create and destroy with a thought. When she experiences strong emotions, reality itself becomes unstable around her. We have lost 3 moons and an entire research station to her unconscious outbursts. She is not malicious, Ambassador. She is simply too powerful for conventional containment or training methods. The scope of what the Queen was describing began to sink in. A being capable of destroying moons as a side effect of emotional distress. No wonder every other species had refused. Your Majesty, with all due respect to your daughter's abilities, how could humans possibly succeed where more advanced civilizations have failed? Queen Zephyria's expression softened almost imperceptibly. 3 months ago, one of your exploration vessels encountered a dying Vorthak war beast in the Gamma sector. By all accounts, your crew should have destroyed it or fled. Instead, your Captain Martinez spent 2 weeks nursing it back to health, despite the fact that Vorthak are considered the most dangerous predators in known space. When it recovered, the beast bonded with your crew and now serves as a guardian for human colonies in that region. Shin remembered the incident. It had caused quite a stir in the diplomatic corps. That was an isolated incident, Your Majesty. Was it? The Queen's voice carried a hint of amusement. Your species has a documented history of befriending beings that others fear. You domesticated creatures on your own world that were apex predators. You form emotional bonds with artificial intelligences that other species treat as mere tools. You have a talent for seeing potential where others see only danger. The weight of the decision pressed down on Chen's shoulders. Accepting would put humanity in an unprecedented position within galactic politics. The Draconis Empire's favor could open doors that have been closed for centuries. But the risks were enormous. If something went wrong, if this dragon princess truly was as dangerous as described, the consequences could be catastrophic. Your Majesty, I would need to consult with my government. This decision is far beyond my authority. Of course, the Queen agreed. But understand, Ambassador, this offer will not remain open indefinitely. Pirith's power grows stronger each day she remains without proper guidance. Soon, we may have no choice but to more permanent solutions. The implication sent another chill through Chun. What exactly would guardianship entail? Pirith would be assigned to a human facility of your choosing. We would provide all necessary resources, including advanced containment technology and a substantial fund for her care. In return, your people would be responsible for her education, emotional development, and learning to control her abilities. The guardian we select would become, in effect, her adoptive parent. Chen's diplomatic training kicked in. And what would humanity receive in return for taking on this responsibility? Queen Zephyria smiled, revealing teeth like crystalline daggers. Full alliance with the Draconis Empire. Shared technology that would advance your civilization by centuries. Protected status for all human colonies and trade routes. And something else that may interest you, Ambassador. She paused dramatically. Pirith, despite her power, is incredibly lonely. She has never had friends her own age, never experienced normal social interaction. She desperately wants to belong somewhere. The species that truly succeeds in helping her will gain not just our gratitude, but her loyalty. And the loyalty of a being with her abilities is beyond price. The hologram flickered as the Queen prepared to disconnect. I will give you 72 hours to provide an answer, Ambassador. After that, we will be forced to consider more drastic alternatives. The projection vanished, leaving Chun alone with his thoughts. He immediately activated his secure communication link to Earth. The next 71 hours were a whirlwind of emergency sessions, expert consultations, and heated debates. The Human Colonial Council was split almost evenly. Half saw the opportunity of a lifetime, a chance to leapfrog human civilization forward by centuries and gain one of the most powerful allies in the galaxy. The other half saw only catastrophic risk, the potential for humanity to be wiped out by an emotional teenager with the power to unmake reality. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the lead xenopsychologist on the committee, provided the most compelling argument for acceptance. Every species that has refused has done so out of fear, she stated during the final session. They see only the danger, not the being behind it. This dragon princess isn't a weapon. She's a child who needs help. And if there's one thing humans have consistently proven, it's our ability to help those that others have given up on. General Harrison, representing military interests, disagreed vehemently. We're talking about a being that accidentally destroys moons, Doctor. One miscalculation, one bad day, and Earth could be gone. How do we justify that risk? President Martinez, Captain Martinez's sister, and the current head of the Colonial Council had the final word. We've built our reputation in this galaxy by doing what others thought was impossible, by showing compassion where others showed fear, by succeeding where others predicted failure. If we turn away from this opportunity, we're not just refusing an alliance. We're refusing to be who we are. The vote was close, but the decision was made. Humanity would accept guardianship of Princess Pirith. Chen found himself back on Nexus Station exactly 72 hours after his first conversation with Queen Zephyria. This time, the holographic projection included additional figures, members of the Draconis Royal Court, and what appeared to be military advisors. Your Majesty, Chen began formally. After extensive deliberation, humanity accepts your offer. We are honored by your trust, and we'll do everything in our power to provide Princess Pirith with the guidance and care she requires. The relief that crossed the Queen's features was unmistakable. You have made a wise decision, Ambassador. Preparations are already underway for Pirith's transfer. But there is one more detail we must discuss. The individual who will serve as her primary guardian. Chen nodded. We have several candidates under consideration. Dr. Elena Vasquez, our most experienced xenobiologist. Dr. James Huang, a specialist in dangerous entity containment. Commander Lisa Park, who has experience with powered individuals. No, the Queen interrupted gently. The guardian has already been chosen. You, Ambassador Chen. The words hit him like a physical blow. Your Majesty, I'm flattered, but I'm not qualified. I'm a diplomat, not a childcare specialist or a scientist. Queen Zephyria's smile was enigmatic. Pirith chose you herself, Ambassador. During our conversation 3 days ago, she was listening. She has reviewed records of your diplomatic missions, your methods of conflict resolution, your ability to remain calm under pressure. Most importantly, she sensed something in you that she has never encountered before. What did she sense? Chen asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Genuine curiosity about her well-being rather than fear of her power. You asked about her abilities not to assess the threat she posed, but to understand what she was experiencing. For someone who has been treated as a walking catastrophe her entire life, that distinction matters immensely. The Queen's image flickered as she prepared to transmit additional data. The transfer will take place in 72 hours at the Frontier Station Omega. It's a research facility built specifically for handling dangerous phenomena, isolated enough to prevent collateral damage, but equipped with everything necessary for Pirith's care and education. Chen felt his world shifting beneath his feet. In 3 days, he would become the guardian of the most powerful being in the known galaxy. A dragon princess whose tantrums could literally reshape reality. Your Majesty, what if I fail? What if I can't help her control her abilities? Queen Zephyria's expression grew serious. Then we will all face the consequences together, Ambassador. But I believe you will succeed where others have failed. Pirith needs what your species excels at providing. She needs someone to see her as a person rather than a force of nature. She needs someone willing to take risks for her well-being. Most of all, she needs someone who won't give up on her when things become difficult. The transmission ended, and Chen found himself staring at his reflection in the dark screen. In 72 hours, his life would change forever. The future of human-Draconis relations, possibly the future of human civilization itself, would rest on his ability to connect with a lonely, frightened, unimaginably powerful young dragon. He thought about his sister back on Earth, about his nephew who was struggling in school because he was different from the other children. Chen stood up, straightened his diplomatic uniform, and began preparing for the most important assignment of his life. In 3 days, he would meet Princess Pirith, and together they would either write a new chapter in galactic history or bring about its explosive end. Either way, he wouldn't face it alone. That was another thing humans were good at, building support networks, creating families from unlikely circumstances. If Princess Pirith truly was looking for belonging, then Chen would make sure she found it. The real challenge wouldn't be containing her power. It would be helping her understand that she was worthy of love despite it. Frontier Station Omega hung in the void like a massive steel flower, its 5 arms extending from a central hub designed to withstand catastrophic energy releases. Chun stood in the main observation deck, watching the Draconis transport vessel approach. The ship was unlike anything he had ever seen, its organic curves and crystalline projections making it appear more grown than built. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood beside him, her scientific instruments humming quietly as she took readings. "Energy signatures are off the charts," she murmured. "Whatever containment systems they're using, they're generating power levels equivalent to a small star." Chen nodded absently, his attention focused on the communication panel. Queen Zephyria had warned him that Pirith's emotional state affected everything around her, including electronic systems. The closer she got to the station, the more their equipment fluctuated. Commander Lisa Park approached from the command center, her expression tense. "Sir, we're getting interference across all frequencies. Nothing dangerous, but it's like someone is broadcasting on every channel simultaneously. The patterns are almost like music." "That would be Pirith," Chen said softly. According to her mother, she unconsciously projects her emotions through various energy fields. The musical patterns probably indicate curiosity or excitement. The transport docked with surprising gentleness, its advanced systems automatically adapting to the station's specifications. Chun felt his heart rate increase as he prepared for his first meeting with the being who would reshape his life and potentially human civilization. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and Chun stepped forward as the heavy doors began to open. A wave of warm air carrying the scent of ozone and something like cinnamon washed over him. Then she appeared. Princess Pirith was not what Chun had expected. Where her mother was massive and imposing, Pirith was roughly human-sized, though clearly still growing. Her scales shifted color constantly, cycling through deep purples, brilliant golds, and crystalline blues like a living prism. Her eyes were the most striking feature, large and expressive, containing depths that seemed to reflect entire galaxies. But it was her posture that caught Chen's attention. Despite her incredible power, despite being royalty of one of the galaxy's most feared empires, she looked like what she was, a frightened teenager who had never been away from home. "Princess Pirith," Chun said, stepping forward and offering a formal bow. "I am Ambassador Chen Wei. Welcome to Frontier Station Omega." Pirith's scales flickered through several rapid colors. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he had anticipated, with a musical quality that seemed to harmonize with itself. "Ambassador Chun," she replied, attempting a formal tone that couldn't quite mask her uncertainty. "I thank you for accepting my mother's request. I know this situation is unusual." Behind her, a small entourage of Draconis attendants were unloading what appeared to be personal belongings and advanced technological equipment. One of them, an elderly dragon with deep crimson scales, approached Chun. "I am Counselor Varek," the dragon announced. "I will remain for the transition period to ensure Princess Pirith's needs are understood and properly addressed. The items we are transferring include educational materials, entertainment systems compatible with her physiology, and emergency containment protocols." Chen noticed that Varek's tone, while respectful, carried an undercurrent of skepticism. The counselor clearly doubted humanity's ability to succeed where others had failed. "Counselor Varek," Chen replied diplomatically, "we appreciate your assistance during this transition. Dr. Vasquez here is our head xenobiologist. That's how we learn." The golden glow intensified, and Chen noticed that the station's lighting seemed to brighten in response to her mood. Dr. Vasquez appeared at his elbow, her scanner beeping softly. "Fascinating," she whispered. "She's unconsciously harmonizing with our power grid, optimizing efficiency. Our energy output just increased by 12%. Over the next several hours, Chen watched as the Draconis entourage efficiently established Pirith's living quarters. The equipment they brought was clearly designed for someone with extraordinary abilities. Furniture that could withstand massive energy discharges, educational systems that projected three-dimensional models of entire star systems, entertainment devices that responded to thought rather than physical input. But it was what they didn't bring that told Chun the real story. No personal mementos. No items that spoke of friendships or emotional connections. No signs that Pirith had ever been allowed to simply be a young person rather than a potential catastrophe requiring management. As evening approached by the station's artificial cycle, Counselor Varric requested a private meeting with Chun. They sat in the conference room, while Pirith explored her quarters under Dr. Vasquez's careful supervision. Ambassador Chun, Varric began, his tone formal but strained. I must emphasize the critical nature of what you have undertaken. Princess Pirith's emotional state directly affects her power output. Strong negative emotions can result in devastating releases of energy. Chen leaned forward. What constitutes strong negative emotions for her? Rejection, primarily. Feelings of abandonment or betrayal. Fear of hurting those she cares about. Varric's scales darkened. In the past, when guardians have terminated their care due to fear of her abilities, the results have been significant. Significant how? The last attempt was made by the Korvathians 3 years ago, when their designated guardian withdrew from the program after witnessing a minor power fluctuation. Pirith's emotional response created a spatial anomaly that consumed their research facility. No one was harmed, but the facility and everything within a 50-kilometer radius simply ceased to exist. Chun felt a chill. The responsibility he had accepted was even more complex than he had realized. Not only did he need to help Pirith control her abilities, but he needed to ensure that his own reactions to her power didn't trigger catastrophic responses. What about positive emotions? He asked. What happens when she's happy? For the first time, Varric's expression softened slightly. When Princess Pirith experiences genuine joy or contentment, reality becomes more stable around her. Plants grow faster, technology functions more efficiently. Even the fundamental forces seem to harmonize. It is beautiful to witness. So the key isn't suppressing her emotions, but helping her experience more positive ones while learning to manage the negative ones safely. Precisely. But no one has been able to sustain that approach. The temptation to restrict her activities, to minimize risks by keeping her isolated, eventually overwhelms every guardian's best intentions. Chun stood and walked to the viewport, looking out at the stars. Then, we'll have to be better than that. We'll have to find ways to give her normal experiences while building her confidence in her ability to control her power. Varric joined him at the viewport. With respect, Ambassador, every guardian has begun with similar optimism. The reality of living with such power, it changes people. It makes them cautious, fearful. Eventually, they begin to see her as a threat rather than a person in need of guidance. Maybe, Chen replied, but humans have a saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over while expecting different results. If the traditional approach hasn't worked, then we need to try something different. Before Varric could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the station. Chen's communicator crackled to life with Dr. Vasquez's voice, tight with excitement rather than panic. Ambassador, you need to see this. Pirith's quarters are, well, you just need to see it. Chun and Varric rushed through the station corridors, arriving at Pirith's quarters to find a crowd of station personnel gathered outside the viewing ports. What they saw inside defied explanation. Pirith sat cross-legged on the floor, her scales cycling through brilliant patterns of color. Around her, the very air seemed to shimmer and dance. But instead of the destruction Chun had feared, everything in the room was being transformed. The sterile metal walls now bore intricate patterns that seemed to grow and shift like living art. Plants that had never been there before were sprouting from the floor, growing at visible speeds into beautiful, exotic forms that Chen didn't recognize. Most remarkably, the emergency containment systems designed to limit damage from power fluctuations were operating at perfect efficiency while somehow becoming aesthetically beautiful. Their harsh lines softened into graceful curves without losing any functionality. What triggered this? Chen asked Dr. Vasquez. She was telling me about her home, Dr. Vasquez replied, her voice filled with wonder. About the gardens in the royal palace, and how much she missed them. I suggested that maybe we could find ways to recreate some of those elements here, and she got so excited that she just started making it happen. Chen watched in amazement as Pirith unconsciously reshaped reality around her, turning cold metal and artificial systems into something alive and beautiful. This wasn't destruction or chaos. This was creation at its most fundamental level. Remarkable, Varek whispered. I have never seen her maintain such complex manipulations while remaining emotionally stable. Usually, the effort required causes significant stress. Maybe the difference is that she's not trying to suppress or control it, Chen suggested. She's expressing herself, making something beautiful because she wants to, not because she has to prove she can control her power. As they watched, Pirith seemed to become aware of her audience. Her scales flickered through embarrassed colors, and the reality manipulations began to slow and stop. Chen stepped forward and activated the communication panel. Pirith, that's absolutely incredible. Your quarters look amazing. Her scales shifted to please gold, and she looked up at the viewport where they stood. You're not angry? I know I was supposed to be careful with my abilities. I'm not angry at all. You've just shown us something wonderful. You've demonstrated that your power isn't just about potential destruction. It's about creation. That's a gift, not a curse. The transformation around her solidified, becoming permanent rather than temporary. For the first time since her arrival, Pirith smiled, and that smile seemed to light up the entire station. Varek stared at the scene in obvious amazement. In 3 hours, you have achieved something we have attempted for years. She is using her abilities constructively, artistically, without stress or negative consequences. We've given her something that apparently she's never had before, Chen replied. Permission to be herself without apology. As the station's evening cycle began, Chen found himself standing in Pirith's transformed quarters, sharing a simple meal while she told him about her life in the Draconis Empire. Her descriptions painted a picture of gilded isolation, of being surrounded by servants and teachers and guards who feared her too much to truly connect with her. What do you miss most about home? Chen asked. Pirith considered the question carefully. The Star Gardens, she said finally. There are places in the palace where you can see entire nebulae, as if they were flowers in a garden. But I was only allowed to visit them with heavy supervision, and everyone was always so tense. Chen made a mental note to research whether the station's observation decks could be modified to provide similar views. What would you like to do while you're here? Besides learning to better manage your abilities, what interests you? Her scales flickered through surprised colors. No one has ever asked me that before. Well, I'm asking now. They seem to have so much fun together, but I've never been allowed close enough to anyone my own age to understand how those relationships work. Chen felt his heart break a little for this incredibly powerful being who had been denied the simple experience of making friends. Well, we'll have to work on that. There are ways to establish safe social interactions, and I think the benefits would far outweigh the risks. As they talked, Chen noticed that Pirith's emotional projections were becoming more stable and controlled. When she laughed at his stories about diplomatic mishaps, the station's systems hummed more efficiently rather than fluctuating wildly. When she grew sad talking about her isolation, the plan she had created simply seemed to grow more protective rather than withering or becoming dangerous. You know, Chun said as the evening wound down, I think we're going to do just fine together. Pirith's scales glowed with warm contentment, and throughout the station, every system optimized itself just a little bit more. For the first time in her life, the most powerful being in the galaxy felt like she might actually belong somewhere. And Chen began to understand that helping Pirith wouldn't just change her life or benefit humanity. It would prove something important about the nature of power itself. That true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the choice to create, protect, and nurture. The real journey was just beginning. 6 months after Pirith's arrival at Frontier Station Omega, the facility had become something unprecedented in galactic history. What had begun as a sterile research station designed to contain dangerous phenomena had transformed into a living work of art that functioned better than its original designers had ever imagined possible. Chen walked through corridors where Pirith's unconscious influence had created flowing organic patterns in the metal walls, where bioluminescent plants provided gentle lighting that responded to the emotional atmosphere of those passing by. The entire station hummed with an efficiency that defied conventional engineering, as if reality itself had been optimized for harmony. But today, that harmony would face its greatest test. Dr. Vasquez met Chun in the main laboratory, her expression tense. "Ambassador, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are detecting a massive fleet approaching our position. The energy signatures match Korvathian battle cruisers." Chun felt his stomach drop. The Korvathians were the species that had previously attempted to care for Pirith, whose failure had resulted in the destruction of their research facility. Their military was known for being aggressive and paranoid, and they had never forgiven the perceived humiliation of their inability to handle one young dragon. "How many ships?" Chun asked, already moving toward the command center. 47 vessels, including at least 12 dreadnoughts. "It's a full invasion force, Ambassador, and they're broadcasting demands for Pirith's immediate surrender." Chen's mind raced. The station's defenses, while advanced, were designed for scientific research and containment, not military action. Against a Korvathian battle fleet, they wouldn't last an hour. Commander Park appeared at his side, her tactical display showing the approaching fleet's formation. "Sir, they'll be within weapons range in 3 hours. I recommend we evacuate Princess Pirith immediately and prepare for defensive actions." "No," Chen said firmly. "We're not running, and we're absolutely not surrendering Pirith. She's finally found stability and happiness here. I won't let anyone take that away from her." "Sir, with respect, we can't possibly stand against that kind of force," Parr protested. "Maybe not with conventional weapons, but we have something they don't." Chen activated the station-wide communication system. "Princess Pirith, please report to the command center immediately." Minutes later, Pirith arrived, her scales immediately shifting to concerned patterns as she sensed the tension in the room. "What's wrong? The station feels different, like everyone is afraid." Chen turned to face her, making sure his own expression remained calm and confident. "Pirith, the Korvathians are coming. They want to take you away from here, probably to try again to manage your abilities the way they attempted before." Her scales rippled through rapid color changes, cycling from shock to anger to fear. Around the command center, lights flickered and electronic systems hummed with increased power. "I won't go back," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "I won't let them lock me in containment chambers again. Won't let them treat me like a weapon they need to control." "You don't have to go anywhere," Chen said firmly. "This is your home now, and we protect our own. But I need to ask you something important, and I need you to think carefully before answering." Pirith's colors stabilized into attentive patterns. "What is it? Are you willing to defend yourself and this station? Not with uncontrolled bursts of power, but with precise, intentional use of your abilities? It would mean accepting that you're not just someone who needs protection, but someone capable of protecting others." The question hung in the air between them. For months, Chen had focused on helping Pirith see her power as something positive rather than destructive. Now he was asking her to deliberately use that power as a weapon, even if only in defense. Pirith was quiet for nearly a minute, her scales cycling through thoughtful colors. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a new depth of maturity. "For months, you've all taught me that my worth isn't determined by my power, that I'm valued for who I am rather than what I can do. But that also means I have the right to choose how I use my abilities, doesn't it? Shin nodded. That's exactly what it means. Then yes, she said, her scales settling into determined patterns of deep blue and silver. I'll defend my home and my friends. But I need your help to do it precisely, without causing unnecessary harm. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her scanners. Ambassador, the Corvathian fleet is powering weapons. They're not here to negotiate. Chun activated the external communication system. Corvathian fleet, this is Ambassador Chunwei of the Human Colonial Authority. You are approaching a diplomatic facility under human protection. State your intentions. The response came immediately, a harsh voice speaking in the guttural tones of the Corvathian military. Ambassador Chun, I am Fleet Commander Gralix. We have come to retrieve the dragon princess who is foolishly entrusted to your inadequate care. Stand down and surrender her immediately or face the consequences. Princess Pirith is under human protection and has requested asylum, Chun replied calmly. She is not property to be retrieved. She is a sentient being with rights. Rights? Gralix's voice carried obvious scorn. That creature destroyed one of our facilities and cost us billions of credits in research. She is too dangerous to be left uncontained. We offer you one final opportunity to surrender her peacefully. Chen looked at Pirith, who was listening to the exchange with growing anger. Her scales were beginning to shift toward the angry reds and oranges that usually preceded power fluctuations. Pirith, he said softly, remember what we practiced. Emotion doesn't have to mean loss of control. Channel that anger into purpose. She nodded, taking the deep breathing exercises they had worked on together. As she calmed herself, the station's system stabilized, but Chun could sense the enormous power building just beneath her controlled surface. Fleet Commander Gralix. Chun responded over the communication system. Princess Pirith chooses to remain here. Any attempt to take her by force will be considered an act of war against the Human Colonial Authority and the Draconis Empire. Gralix's laugh was harsh and unpleasant. Your little research station and your primitive weapons are no match for a Corvathian battle fleet, human, and the Draconis Empire is too far away to help you. Surrender the dragon now, or we will take her from your wreckage. The communication cut off, and tactical displays immediately showed the Corvathian ships moving into attack formations. Dr. Vasquez, Chun called, I need you to establish a secure link to the Draconis Empire. Queen Zephyria needs to know what's happening. Already trying, Ambassador, but they're jamming our long-range communications. Chun turned to Pirith. Are you ready? She nodded, moving to the station's primary control interface. What do you need me to do? First, can you enhance our defensive systems without overloading them? Pirith placed her hands on the control panel, and Chun watched as energy readings across the station jumped dramatically. But instead of the chaotic spikes he might have expected, the increases were perfectly controlled, optimizing every system without strain. Defensive systems are now operating at 400% normal efficiency, Commander Park reported, amazement clear in her voice. Shields are stronger than anything I've ever seen on a station this size. Weapons? Chen asked. We were never designed for heavy combat. Park admitted. We have some defensive laser arrays, but against dreadnoughts. May I? Pirith asked, moving toward the weapons console. Chen nodded, and Pirith interfaced with the weapons systems. The change was immediate and dramatic. The station's modest defensive lasers began drawing power from sources that shouldn't have existed, their energy output increasing exponentially while somehow remaining stable and precise. How is she doing this? Dr. Vasquez whispered, staring at her readings. She's not just channeling energy, Chun realized. She's rewriting the fundamental physics of how our systems operate. She's making them work better than they ever should have been able to. The first wave of Corvathian attack ships came within range and opened fire. Their plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes struck the station's shields, which absorbed the impacts effortlessly and actually seemed to grow stronger from the bombardment. Impossible, Commander Park breathed. The shields are converting their weapons' fire into additional power for our systems. Pirith's response was swift and precise. The station's enhanced weapons systems fired with surgical accuracy, targeting the Korvathian ship's weapons and propulsion systems rather than their hulls. One by one, the attacking vessels found themselves disabled, but intact, their crews unharmed but helpless. Warning shots, Pirith explained, her concentration never wavering from her task. I don't want to hurt anyone unnecessarily. Fleet Commander Gralix's voice crackled over the communication system, fury and disbelief warring in his tone. What trickery is this? No research station should have such capabilities. No trickery, Chen replied calmly. Just a young lady defending her home with precision and restraint. You've seen what she can do when she chooses to use her power defensively. Imagine what might happen if she decided to take offensive action. The threat was clear, and Chen could see on his tactical display that several Korvathian ships were already beginning to withdraw. But Gralix wasn't finished. If we cannot take her, then we will ensure she cannot threaten anyone else. All ships, target the station's reactor core. Overload it. If we cannot contain the dragon, we will destroy her. Chen felt ice in his veins. A reactor core overload would not only destroy the station, but create a massive explosion that could damage ships throughout the system. Pirith, he said urgently, can you prevent a reactor overload? Her scales flickered through concern patterns, but her voice remained steady. I can do better than that. I can make their targeting systems useless. The Korvathian fleet opened fire with everything they had, dozens of ships concentrating their weapons on the station's most vulnerable points. But as their weapons fired, something extraordinary happened. The energy from their attacks began to bend and twist in space, deflected by gravitational fields that Pirith was generating around the station. More than that, the redirected energy was being channeled back toward the attacking ships, not as destructive force, but as electromagnetic pulses that disabled their targeting computers and navigation systems. Within minutes, the entire Korvathian fleet found themselves blind and helpless, drifting in space with their most critical systems offline. This is Fleet Commander Gralix, came the transmission, the arrogance replaced by uncertainty. What are your demands? Chen looked at Pirith, who had handled the entire battle without breaking a sweat. Her power was absolutely staggering, but she had used it with remarkable precision and restraint, disabling rather than destroying, protecting rather than annihilating. Our demands are simple, Chen replied. Acknowledge Princess Pirith's right to choose her own guardian and residence. Cease all attempts to reclaim or control her, and spread the word throughout the galaxy that humanity honors our agreements and protects those under our care. There was a long pause before Gralix responded. The Korvathian Empire acknowledges the Dragon Princess's choice. We withdraw our claim. As the disabled Korvathian ships began effecting repairs and withdrawing from the system, Chun felt a hand on his shoulder. Pirith was looking at him with an expression of profound gratitude. Thank you, she said softly. For the first time in my life, someone stood up for me, really fought for me. That's what families do, Chen replied. We protect each other. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her console, her face bright with excitement. Ambassador, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Draconis Empire. It's Queen Zephyria. The holographic projection materialized, showing the Dragon Queen's massive form. But instead of her usual regal composure, she appeared almost frantic with worry. Ambassador Chun, we detected massive energy signatures from your position. Is Pirith safe? Are you safe? We're all fine, Your Majesty, Chen assured her. Princess Pirith successfully defended the station against a Korvathian attack fleet. She demonstrated perfect control over her abilities and showed remarkable restraint in her responses. Queen Zephyria's relief was visible. Show me. Chun activated the tactical playback, showing the Queen how Pirith had enhanced the station's systems, disabled the attacking fleet without casualties, and protected everyone aboard. When the recording finished, Queen Zephyria was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice carried emotions that Chun had never heard from her before. In 5,000 years of our empire's history, no dragon has ever demonstrated such precise control over reality manipulation while under emotional stress. Pirith, you have exceeded every hope I held for your development. Pirith's scales glowed with pleased patterns. I had good teachers, mother, and for the first time, people who believed in me rather than fearing me. The queen turned her attention back to Chun. Ambassador, the human colonial authority will find that the Draconis Empire remembers its friends. Your species has accomplished something that we believed impossible. You have not only given my daughter control over her abilities, but confidence in herself. Over the following weeks, news of what had happened at Frontier Station Omega spread throughout the galaxy. The story of a human diplomat who had succeeded in helping the most powerful dragon princess find balance and purpose became legendary. But for Chun, watching Pirith work in her gardens, teaching young scientists who came to study her abilities, and laughing with the friend she had finally been allowed to make, the real victory was much simpler. They had proven that power without purpose was meaningless, but power guided by compassion and tempered by wisdom could reshape the very nature of civilization itself. Pirith was no longer the dragon that everyone refused to care for. She had become something entirely new, a bridge between species, a symbol of what was possible when beings chose to see potential rather than threat in each other. And humanity had earned its place among the galactic community not through superior weapons or advanced technology, but by demonstrating the oldest and most powerful force in the universe, the willingness to care for someone that others had given up on. The galaxy would never be the same, and that, Chun reflected as he watched Pirith help a group of young aliens learn to tend her star gardens, was exactly as it should be.